WiSP Sports Radio, the voice of women in sport.
Hello, and thanks for downloading the WiSP Sports Desk. I'm Chris Stafford, and my partner here is Nancy Gillen. She'll be joining me in just a moment from the UK. If you have not listened to this show before, this is Season 1, Episode 14. And you can join in the conversation anytime by following us on social media at WiSP Sports. We'd love to hear from you. And you can get the show notes for this episode, as always, on our website at wisports.com. Well, here we are, Nancy, with another week, and this week, a fantastic week of sport, really, and I think really exciting. We've got so many stories. We never seem to have any shortage of stories, which really justifies why we need to have this show, doesn't it?
Yeah, and we're getting near Christmas. You know, sport is kind of reducing while people kind of take a holiday. But like you said, we've still got so many stories to get through.
Well, since we spoke last week, you went to Monaco for the Peace and Sport Forum. How was that?
Yeah, it was really interesting. They kind of talked about quite a lot of different issues. I think the most interesting talk I went to was one of human rights, which kind of it talked a lot about kind of issues, you know, such as the Afghanistan women's football team, where they've kind of had their human rights completely abused and so on, and kind of what kind of safeguarding policies can be put in place and like need to be put in place for teams and kind of sport in general. So that was really interesting to kind of hear. And then there was one on gender equality, which I put on Twitter, and quite a lot of people responded to. It was kind of there were two men talking about it, so I kind of put on Twitter that they were missing something integral from that panel because they didn't actually have a woman talking about gender equality. Yes. Yeah, which I know isn't you know, it's not necessary, but you'd think, you know, you need an equal balance when you're having that kind of conversation. So there was a really, really good balance of speakers in all other topics, which is why I found it even more bizarre that they didn't have a woman for that one, just because it would have been so easy to find someone that could have spoke about that for a bit. So I was a bit disappointed about that, but it was interesting otherwise. Yeah,
that's what second time you've been to that forum, isn't it?
Yeah, so I went last year as well, and it was in a different location and it was a different format, but I think they kind of broadened the number of topics they had this year, which was good. But second time.
And did you get to meet any athletes that you had not met before?
I met Didier Drogba, the football player who is from Ivory Coast and he used to play for Chelsea. I met him. I don't think it was mainly people within the sporting movement in kind of NGOs and charities and federations and so on. So it was good to meet people. I met quite a lot of people from like the Sports and Human Rights Centre and so on, kind of people that work within like charities within sports, which was good.
Yeah, that's all interesting, isn't it? Good to network.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably what most people use it for. I think it's quite a good networking opportunity, if nothing else, at least.
Cool. Well, overnight, we've had some really exciting news for women in sport generally, and another barrier has been broken. And it was a name that popped up on my Twitter feed. I'm afraid I had not heard of her before, but she was playing, this is Fallon Sherrock, a name that's memorable for sure. And she's only 25. She's from Milton Keynes in England. And she was facing a guy, because they're mostly men. I think there's about 96, aren't there, in the field in total for the PDC World Championships that took place in North London. And it's actually just in the early rounds now. But she made history, didn't she, by beating a man? It was this is the first time that's ever happened.
Yeah, and she so I think what's quite interesting is that she's only the fifth woman to play in the World Championships full stop. So I think if there had been more women playing in the championships, we would have got here a lot earlier. But it's kind of that whole argument about you you need more players, more female players, and then you get kind of more success. So I mean, hopefully she can inspire other women as well. But yeah, she beat another Englishman, I think. And the thing that really struck me about it was the crowd. Like darts, I think darts is quite, in this country at least, darts is quite a rowdy kind of event, really. You know, a lot of people go there and like have a really good time. And it was just how much the crowd got behind her, and how much when she had the free darts and she could have won the match. How much they celebrated, which I think was really, really, really nice. I'm just glad that she made history, but she also got such a good reception for it as well. And hopefully, like I said, she can inspire a lot of women to also get involved, so we can have a lot more women winning matches as well.
Yeah, a lot more entries at that level. But it was exciting, really, for her. I don't know how she held her nerve, because she needed, 36 to beat Ted Evans, which she did 3-2 in the end. But so it came right down to it's always nail biting, but as you say, it's an amazing atmosphere. And she seemed just so, and you have to be, I'm sure. It's like shooting in biathlon or archery or any of those target sports. You have just got to get your breathing regulated. You've just got to shut out everything around you and be so composed. And she seemed to be, because even when she knew she won, she didn't exactly jump up and down in the air. She was but I think it kind of sunk in, and she's had a lot of media attention. But the crowd was so supportive of her. It must have been a fabulous experience for her, and hopefully she'll continue to push her way through this and keep going. How long is this tournament? Is it all week now?
Yeah, it goes right up until Christmas. And yeah, so that was only the first round. So hopefully she can get further. But I think alone, I think I saw on Twitter just a few hours ago, she's going on Good Morning Britain, which is one of the big.
She did that already, and she beat.
Was it this morning?
She did it this morning, right after, and she beat. I can't remember the name, one of the hosts there, and then she's going to auction off the board. The winning board there, and because she beat him as well. I can't remember his name.
Was it Phil Schofield? Oh
no,
was it Piers Morgan?
Piers Morgan, that's right.
Piers
yes,
Morgan,
she beat him on the show as well.
Yeah.
So good for her. She's doing the media rounds as well, and that's all good for the sport. So well done, Fallon Sherrock. There's a new name for us to remember in women's darts. So that's a great story. I love that. Well done to her. And also happening in London now, of course, is the annual Olympia show, which is a wonderful, wonderful show. If you ever want to go to a horse show, an indoor horse show, that is, over the winter, this is a lovely atmosphere. It's been running for many, many years, and it has a World Cup qualifier every year for jumping and for dressage, the finals being in Las Vegas next April. And it's not surprising, because 7 out of the top 9 in that dressage competition, in the freestyle, were from Great Britain. So a really good home crowd there supporting their riders. And no surprise at all, really, that Charlotte Dujardin won with Mount St. John freestyle. She got an 87 again, 87%. But this is a horse that is scoring really very high, like Bellegro, her other championship horse. And she beat her stablemate there, Carl Hester, into second place. So it was a 1-2-3 for Great Britain, and a very, very popular win for Charlotte. So I'm sure she'll have her sights set on Vegas in April. So that was a great story two great stories coming out of England overnight. But there was a not so good story coming out of Canada as far as equestrian sports concerned overnight too, because do you remember, I think it was about 3 weeks ago, Nancy, that we reported about on Nicole Walker, the Canadian show jumper who was tested positive at the Pan Am Games.
Yeah.
And she appealed, and the federation appealed, and she lost that appeal, which means that Canada have lost their Olympic spot for Tokyo next year. They will be sending an individual, so we'll find out closer to the time who that might be, but they will get one slot there. But it means, that because she lost that appeal, it means that Canada automatically have lost their Olympic spot, which they qualified in Lima, and also she finished 4th, so they've been handing over their prize money. It's a great shame for the sport. It's a great shame for Canada. But it's going to look very different in Tokyo now with the teams that we do have. So there's 20 nations that will be there, but they will not be one of them. So I know she's going to appeal. She's going to take it to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, to CAS, and the Federation are pretty confident, or at least her lawyer's pretty confident that they will win that appeal, but I think it's going to be too late. So
yeah,
that's the lesson from that.
I suppose you've got all the preparations for the Olympics. You need to be doing them now. So, I mean, CAS, it takes a long time to kind of get to and process and have the answers. So, yeah, like you said, even if it's a good result, it's probably too late to think about performing at the Olympics. Yeah,
it is, because obviously with horses it takes just as long. It takes longer in some ways than human athletes to prepare for Olympic Games. So we'll keep an eye on that, bring you an update if we hear anything new. But you've got a story from England netball as well.
Yeah, just kind of more good news about after hosting the World Cup in Liverpool over the summer. I've kind of spoken a bit before about kind of the positive impact it has had on netball in this country, but the kind of two main competitions in the country, so the Superleague, which is the domestic league, they've had really good ticket sales for that. So I think 95% of tickets for the season opener in January have sold out. And then there's like an inaugural tournament involving teams like South Africa, New Zealand, taking place next year as well. And that's completely sold out apart from one match against South Africa. So England Netball have said, in terms of, when you compare it to ticket sales for the Super League last year, it's such a massive increase already, and it's not even got anywhere near the event. So you can see how much the World Cup has had like a massive impact on it, really. And then they've also kind of got a New Year's event, which is going to kind of try and get more and more people involved in kind of coaching netball and playing netball. So just kind of more good news really from hosting the Netball World Cup. And I think it shows almost the positive effect you can have from kind of like capitalising, I think, on the popularity of a sport in your country and hosting an event, really.
Yeah, for sure. And netball has had a fantastic year, and the last couple of years, really, they're just growing. Every time we look at it, it's growing at all levels across the Commonwealth countries. So good news for them. And good news for talking about Commonwealth countries and sports. In cricket, one of our favourite cricketers, Australian all-rounder Elysse Perry, she's just won the Rachel Hayhoe-Flint Award in the ICC Women's Cricketer of the Year. Not surprising there. She's amazing, isn't she?
Yeah, and I think it's quite nice when you do have someone, recognised for the achievements and everything they've done for the sport, really. Yeah, I think it's well deserved.
She became apparently the first player to complete 1,000 runs and 100 wickets in T20s. How about that? And this year she averaged 73.50 from 12 ODIs, during which she also took 21 wickets, including a national record of 7 for 22. 7 for 22, how about that?
Yeah, I mean, the numbers are just ridiculous, really. I don't think anyone can really compare.
No, good for her. Well, congratulations, Elysse, on that. Tomorrow, this winter is going to be a good winter season for women's cricket as well, with tours happening in the northern southern hemisphere, and looking forward to next year as well. It bodes well for women's cricket. Really exciting future. I think if you were coming into that sport, with any amount of talent, you'd be very optimistic of the future now, because it's on a totally different standing to what it was 5 years and much less 10 years ago. But England did lose a couple of players to retirement this year, didn't we? I think earlier on this fall we heard that Jenny Gunn had retired, but now Laura Marsh has retired too. Did you see that?
Yeah, I did. And I think it might be almost like you said, maybe it's kind of they're feeling like it's the end of an era maybe, and it's time to make room for new players potentially, and kind of like a new generation of cricketers in England.
Yeah, I think that could be right. They're both 33, so hopefully they'll go on to coach or it doesn't mean to say they're going to stop playing cricket. They're going to stop playing internationally, perhaps, but no doubt they'll be very involved in the sport. But yeah, you have to wonder if it is them thinking it is the end of an era. So that's 2 retirements this year, and there probably are more that we've missed, but Jenny Gunn and Laura Marsh for England. Some news from the Japan World Cup winners in Tokyo 2020 relay, a story you picked up from Inside the Games.
Yeah, so they're going to start off the domestic leg of the Tokyo 2020 torch relay. So it starts in Greece, and we said a few weeks ago kind of who's starting that and who's involved in that stage of the relay. But when it reaches Japan, it's going to be the women's football team that won the 2011 World Cup, and I think that was in Germany, and I think they've picked that team because they won just after the earthquake, the tsunami and the earthquake in Japan, which was obviously devastating, and a lot of people died in that, and it was kind of almost seen as a miracle when Japan won the World Cup. It was they were complete underdogs. They beat the United States in the final. The country was just kind of devastated at the time, and they kind of had this miraculous win in the Women's World Cup, which was, kind of at least brought some kind of happiness. And the idea behind the Olympics is that it's kind of a lot of stuff is happening in Fukushima, which is where the earthquake happened, and a lot of people were kind of like affected by it there. And the idea behind the Olympics is kind of like the regeneration of the area. So I think it's quite a symbolic idea to kind of put the World Cup winners who kind of helped the country so much during that time to start off the relay. So yeah, I think it's a really kind of nice. They got a lot of recognition at the time, but 2011 was nearly 10 years ago, and I think women's football was in a very different place, and they probably didn't get as much credit as they deserve. So I think it's nice now that they have that recognition, really.
Yes, and they went on to win the silver medal, didn't they, at the London 2012 Olympic Games?
Yeah, and I think they were just kind of, they haven't done as well recently, but they've been probably one of the strongest teams they were the first Japanese teams to ever win a World Cup, and they've just been, I think, really well supported in Japan, and probably one of their most recent success stories. So yeah, quite a good choice, I think, for the torch relay.
Well, moving on to handball now. I've never been to a competition. Have you?
I haven't been to Floorball myself, but I've watched it a bit because we've had reports to do on it, and it's quite an interesting sport. It's kind of like a cross between ice hockey and hockey, but so it's indoors. It's on a kind of hard floor. You can go. It's with a kind of ball and a stick, and you can go behind the goal as well. So it's kind of quite unique, and it's very, very popular in Scandinavia. So kind of Finland, Sweden, Norway, Iceland are kind of the countries that are really good at it.
Yeah, it's funny how that some areas gravitate to a particular sport, isn't it? And yeah, I guess if you're into Scandinavia, you know all about it. But what was what was the appeal this year that they broke attendance records? What was that about?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not quite sure what kind of drew people to really go to this one kind of more than other ones, but I think it was about 30,000, 35,000 people that attended this final for the Floorball finals, which was just amazing, really. I don't know if it's because it's just grown in popularity. Sweden won for I think it was their 7th successive title, and they've won 9 times in total. So they've dominated quite a lot in Floorball. So maybe people wanted to come and watch them like impress, or I'm not quite sure, but it's good news anyway. Because it's when we were talking about tech ball last week, it's kind of one of those sports that because it's lesser known, people don't really treat it as men are better or women are better. So maybe because of that, people just saw it, as a sporting event to go to and just went to it.
Yeah, and they beat the host nation, Switzerland, because that took place in the French part of Switzerland, didn't it, in Neuchâtel? So
yeah.
All right. Well, moving on to a doping story you've got this week. It seems every week we have one, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of kind of, as I think as we get nearer to Tokyo 2020, there's quite a lot going on there. But it's the Vincent Lapointe, the canoe sprint world champion. She failed a doping test back in August, which was before the canoe sprint world championships. And I think it was a massive shock because she's won 11 world titles, so she's kind of very well established in the world of, canoe sprint, and she's very well respected. But she failed for a substance which is quite similar to an anabolic steroid. But she said that she didn't. She's kind of pleaded innocence, and so have the Canadian Canoe Federation. But she's had a preliminary suspension, and now she's gone before an anti-doping hearing, and she will hear within the month, I believe. But obviously this could affect whether she goes to the Olympics or not, because it will probably be at least a year's ban, which means she will miss the Olympics. You do see mixed results with these things. I think we were talking earlier this year about Brianna Williams, the Jamaican sprinter, and she managed to get past it okay and will be at the Olympics, but it completely varies, I suppose. So I imagine she's really hoping that she'll be able to kind of get through it and go to the Olympics.
Yeah, yet another Canadian doping story, 2 in one show. That's unusual from Canada.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
All right, well, we'll keep an eye on that one too. But you mentioned there, Brianna. What was the story that she won her appeal?
Yeah, so she failed a doping test, but the medicine that she'd taken can also just be used to treat kind of a common cold. And she said that her relative gave it to her, and it got overturned, and she can compete fine. So it is possible. It does happen that people, just because you fail a doping test does not necessarily mean that you're going to be banned, but I think you're more likely than not, unless you have a very, very good excuse and kind of proof, you're probably going to face a ban, really.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll keep an eye on that story as well. And you've got a retirement. We were talking about 2 cricketing retirements earlier. You've got a retirement in figure skating.
Yeah, well, she hasn't actually retired, so it's kind of these rumours that are floating around. So it's Anna Zagitova from Russia. She's only 17, but she's already got an Olympic gold medal, a European gold medal from this year, and she got the world title last year in 2018. So she's already got it all really at the age of 17. But she's kind of struggling this season already. Like, they had the figure skating grand final last month, and she came last out of 6. And she's Russian, and there were 3 other Russians in the competition, and they came first, second, and third, and then she came 6th. So I think she's just decided to have a break and miss the Russian national championships, which means missing essentially the European championships and the world championships. So after she announced that, there were kind of a few rumours that she's going to retire, but she's kind of put that to bed and said that she's just got to take a break, and she's not happy with her performance this season. So she's essentially just going to kind of drop out for a bit, like really work on that, work with her coaches, and then hopefully she'll be able to come back and be like better and basically back in form, really, I suppose.
Yeah, those Russian championships actually take place next week, don't they, over the holiday from the 24th to the 29th. In Krasnoyarsk, wherever that may be, it's going to be cold.
I've been there, funnily enough.
Of course you have. You've been all over Russia, haven't you?
Yeah, they had the Winter University Games there in February, so I went there for that. So I imagine I've been to the stadium where they're going to hold that, because they had a figure skating stadium. So yeah, funnily enough, I've been there.
All right. Well, have you been to Tennessee?
No, I've never been to Tennessee, no.
All right. Well, our last story this week is from Tennessee, and it is about, we've had this ongoing discussion, and it will continue to play out, I think, especially coming up to the Olympic Games next year. But Tennessee have proposed a bill that would make students compete in sports based on biological sex at birth. I think I shared that story with you because it looks like it's going against the federal government, because the federal government is trying to put through a passage the Equality Act that, among other things, creates a civil right for male athletes to self-identify as females in sports competitions. So they're going head to head with this. Have you got anything from your side of the pond? Have you been watching these stories?
So I've heard about it from kind of a different view. So I think they because it's not just sport based, is it also kind of just across secondary and primary education as a whole? I think. I'm not quite sure. Maybe it is sport, but I've kind of heard about genuinely what is happening at an international level. There's a big debate happening about it, and I think everyone's kind of agreed that there needs to be more research done into it before, there's kind of like structures put in place for what happens with that kind of thing. But I just really don't understand why. I think at a school level you need to be making that kind of decision at that point, really.
Yeah, I think it seems to me in Tennessee anyway, they are threatening these schools with the withdrawal of any public funding, and what they're saying is that they're seeing more transgender athletes competing and posting victories in traditionally gendered sports competitions, and in so doing, to the detriment of girls and women biologically born female, boys and men due to testosterone levels, bigger bone structure, greater lung capacity, and larger heart size are physical advantages in sports relative to girls and women in sports. So what it seems is happening, and we're hearing this around the world, that men are just self-identifying as women.
Yeah.
And without having any biological changes.
Okay, so I suppose that is, I mean, I don't know, it's just such a hard debate, really, isn't it? And it's hard to kind of say what the, where you draw the line with that kind of thing. I don't know. I mean, if someone was doing that just purely to get an advantage in sport, then that is unfair. But do you think many people are doing that?
Well, that's what they're claiming. I didn't mean biological changes. I meant that fundamentally they're thinking it's unfair because it's unfair on biological girls who are competing for college scholarships, for example, to go up against biological males. So it seems that there are more men doing this. It's become a thing.
Yeah, in which case that is definitely, you can't really, that is unfair. But I suppose it kind of what it sets for the rest of the sporting world, really. When you have something at that level, I suppose kind of higher up and stuff, they kind of have to start following as well.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see because they're doing this at state level. They're putting this through at state level, and then the federal government is doing something completely different. So it'll be interesting to watch this play out because, as I said, coming up to an Olympic year, we'll have a lot more of this unfolding. The debate has been rampant on social media all this year, so we will continue to watch that. And as it being the end of the year, we've got a few nominations that we need to make when we will do on social media for the Team of the Year, the Athlete of the Year, and the Coach of the Year. So stay tuned for that because right now it's looking like USA Soccer are going to be winning the Team of the Year. And I think we've got an Athlete of the Year now, very recently. And any final thoughts, Nancy, because we won't be talking to you before Christmas now. This will be the last show of the year. Who would be your nominations?
I definitely agree with the Team of the Year. I think just for America winning the World Cup, but also what they're doing off the pitch in terms of equality, I think is amazing. I agree with the Athlete of the Year as well, just because I think there's not many times now where, because we're progressing so much, I don't think there's many times where women are the first to do something. And I think it's, amazing that she's the first woman to win a world championship match. Like, I think that's really, really impressive. Coach of the Year.
And that's going to be Sherrock Fallon for anybody who hasn't guessed.
And then I've looked at the netball coach, and she's Nolene to. I'm not quite sure how you say her surname. I think it's Taror or something like that. I've put
the Kiwi netball coach,
New Zealand netball coach. I think just because It was kind of one of the flagship female sporting events of the year, and because Australia have won nearly every single year, and she managed to kind of prevent that, I think and they also beat England in the semi-final as well, I think. They beat the hosts and then they beat the favourites, so I'm going to say her for Coach of the Year.
Okay, all right. We've got our Team of the Year, Athlete of the Year, and New Zealand will be winning the Coach of the Year, New Zealand Netball. So look out for that on social media. We will be posting those over the next few days. And also wanted to mention that on the sailing show this week, this is coming out this Friday, Abby Ehler, who of course represents the Magenta Project in partnership with us for the sailing show, she talked to Nikki Henderson about skippering Clipper round the world yacht race, and also she was a guest skipper on Maiden. But notably too, she accompanied Greta Thunberg across the Atlantic on the catamaran journey that they made coming back to Europe recently, and really got to know Greta. So that was a lovely conversation that's on the sailing show out this Friday, wherever you get your podcasts. And over the next few days, just to give you some stocking fillers, we've been talking to some of the WiSP ambassadors who review their year and share their hopes and goals for 2020. That's also on. It's in our athlete profile series. It's a season holiday special, so look out for that, because we talked to Nikki Daly, the Irish hockey player, Nicole Drought, the Irish motor racing driver, and also Sam Cornett, the Canadian squash player. So there may be even some more. So stay tuned for that. But that's all coming up on WiSP Sports over the holiday season. And we cannot go without mentioning that you got a nod, Nancy, to be nominated for an award. So we tell everybody about that.
I'm very happy to see that I was shortlisted for AIPS, which is the Association of Sports Journalists. They've got kind of a series of awards, and I got shortlisted for their Best Column Award, which is just, it's quite a nice end to the year, really.
Fabulous. Very nice. Well, congratulations on that. To get recognition from APES is fantastic. So good for you. Well done. When will you know?
I think 15th of January, I think they announce the awards.
Okay. All right. Well, we will bring you the news of that here on the WiSP Sports Desk. And we have a few other things lined up for 2020 on this show, and some guest contributors as well. So look out for that, because we're starting to really fill out the show here and make it bigger and better in 2020. So we're looking forward to that. Nancy, you're looking forward to Christmas pudding, mince pies, Christmas cake?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to a bit of a break and just kind of relaxing and seeing family. It should be good.
And do you know when your next travels will take you?
No, I know that some people are going to the Youth Winter Olympic Games next January in Lausanne in Switzerland. And I'm not sure, I don't think I'm going to that, but I know there's an IOC session beforehand, and I think I will be there. So just more cold, really, at the moment.
Definitely more cold. All right. Well, we will catch up with you in 2020, January 2020, back here on the WiSP Sports Desk. And of course, wherever you get your podcasts, you'll find a lot more shows from around the world of women's sports. We've a lot to look forward to in an Olympic year. But for now, from Nancy Gillen and myself, Chris Stafford, that'll be a wrap for 2019. You can follow us, of course, on social media at Nancy_Gillen and at WiSP Sports. Join in the conversation anytime. Let us know what you think. And in the meanwhile, Nancy, a very, very happy holiday season. We'll see you in 2020.
Thank you. See you in 2020.
Thank you all for listening. Have a wonderful holiday season. Until 2020. Goodbye for now.